vision for the future. Identify the changes affected by groups and prioritize impacted groups. How is this going to affect other people? What does it mean? Are they going to be demotivated by it? How can I motivate them if I know it's going to demotivate them if it does this? Understand the impact of the capacity for affected groups. Identify a leadership spine. Build commitment and capability. So these things here you need to do to have. And it's not just one thing. It's so many different things on so many different levels you need to implement in order to get effective change and to minimize the negative impacts of not doing it correctly. You need to plan evaluation. Plan evaluation. Check if the plan brings improvements. Carry out a cost-benefit analysis. Modify the plan to cope with unforeseen problems. Keep records of activities and results. Consider the impact of non-financial results. So again, it needs to be monitored all the time and controlled. You can't just let the bringing down of 2 big distribution centres just take place. You need to monitor what's actually happening. Is it on time? Is it actually working? Is it going according to cost and budget? How many times do we see government projects saying that it's going to cost 500 million and then automatically they say it's going to cost £1 billion? Do we not see this time and time again?
All the time.
All the time. Again, can a business afford that to happen? You can't afford these costs to spiral out of control. You have to plan it. You have to know what you're doing and how much it's going to cost. Okay? So these are some of the other things that you need to do to minimize negative impacts of change. You need to implement the change. Make sure there's a proper business plan. Explain the possible impact in your area. Encourage people to seek clarification. Check understanding of the new role. Encourage them to seek questions. Okay? Establish a timetable for change. And communicate the plan for change. All this needs to be done. Do you understand? And it needs to be done at senior manager level, middle manager level, and also employee level. It needs to follow and filter all the way through in order to get this change. So when we're talking about these things, there are so many things that need to actually happen in order to, coming back to the question, minimize the impact of change using this model. Okay? There are possibly other models that you could use, but all these things, if you can see, take into consideration a wide variety of different factors. Okay? Any questions? So who wants to just recap what we've briefly learned? 1, you talk about what? You talk about the factors that are affecting the case study, which is Tesco's, and what's happening in Swat and Pestel in terms of economic factors, Brexit, competition, and people's wages. You then link that to how and what Tesco's have actually done. Tesco's have done in terms of buying Bookers and Londis, how they focused on more British products, how they're focusing on their core ranges, how they're trying to negotiate with their suppliers. You then focus on, some of the reasons why, what causes failure. After you've talked about some of the causes of failure, you can talk about the different types of system before you talk about the model. So you talk about, what is a system? Inputs, transformation, outputs. On the outside, Pestel, environmental factors, closed systems, open systems. Then move into the model, Litwin model, and you talk about how and the purpose of this model. Then talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this model. And then, after that, talk about the specific individual things that helps you to minimize the risk of failure from organizational change. Any questions? Okay, thank you from Mr. Tan. And let's take 15 minutes. Thank you.